Hi there, Perfecto Castro here and welcome to my channel. I hope you're having a great day. In this video, I'm going to show you a couple of dirt pedals handmade in my homeland, the Philippines. The Omega Drive and the Omega Prime from Rabatech Audio. The Omega Drive is not a brand new pedal. In fact, I've had one on my pedal board for the past few years, and I've used it on tour, I've used it on recordings, and I've used it on videos. And this remains one of the dirt pedals that I really like. And recently Rabatech released the Omega Prime, which for all intents and purposes is the bigger brother of the Omega Drive. The Prime shares the same basic tone as its older sibling, but with several more features added. Now I'm going to set things up and I will walk you through all the tone and crunch and grind and filth that these dirt boxes have to offer. Oh, and by the way, if at any point in this video you decide you want your own Omega Drive or Omega Prime, I will put the links in the description box below. In the Philippines, you can get them from the Rabatech Facebook page. And if you're in the US or Canada, at the time of this video, I have a very limited quantity of both pedals that I will be listing on my website, perfectodecastro.com. So you better act fast. Okay, first up, let me show you the Omega Drive. I'll be using my Solid Guitars Stardust Deluxe, and I am plugged into a very clean Super Reverb amp model. That way, all the dirt that you're going to hear will come from the pedal itself. Okay, here we go. Omega Drive on, all knobs at noon. The Omega Drive is a no apologies dirt box through and through. Even in the lowest gain settings, you still have enough crunch and grind for those rock rhythms. And as you turn the gain up, you get a little more thickness and saturation. And in the extreme settings, you'll never be left wanting for more gain because it has plenty on tap. Certainly enough for those searing leads, those liquid lines, and sustain for days. Now let's talk about the EQ section. Even though the Omega Drive has an amp-like EQ layout, they actually work slightly different from your typical amp controls. Instead of having neutral EQ when the knobs are pointed at noon, they actually act as additive controls. Let me show you. I'm going to turn all the knobs down, and this is what we get. Even though the signal got quieter, the tone is still pretty good. Let me compensate by adding some more volume. I'm going to turn the volume back down and I'm going to start adding some of the controls back in. Bass adds more thump. The bulk of the sound of the pedal actually lies in the middle knob. Now let's add a little more presence. So presence adds a little more bite or edge to the tone. Then let's check out the treble. The treble actually acts like an air knob because in the lower settings, the sound is like dry and right in your face. And as you turn it up, the sound sits a little better in the mix and moves farther away. And in the extreme settings, I actually don't like the extreme settings, so don't do that. I mentioned earlier that the bulk of the Omega Drive's tone comes from the middle knob. So to dial my settings in, I'm going to turn down the other EQ knobs first and set the middle at noon. Maybe put it at around 1 o'clock or so. Then I'm going to add in a little bit of low end thump using the bass knob, maybe around 10. Let's see, 11. Adding more bass doesn't really make the low end flabby. I mean, I can turn it all the way up. And it doesn't totally destroy the sound, but that rush of bass isn't really needed in your guitar tone, especially if you are playing in a band context. You gotta leave room for the bass player. So around 10 o'clock, plenty thick enough. And then I'm going to add some more edge and bite using the presence knob. Okay, so I'm gonna leave the presence slightly higher than the middle. So this is around 2 o'clock, the middle is at around 1 o'clock. And to get the tone to sit a little bit better in the mix, I'm going to add in a little bit of the treble. So maybe 9 o'clock or so. If I want it in your face, I'm going to turn the treble all the way down. And just to make things a little more comfortable, gain at 2 o'clock. Now, before we move on to the Omega Prime, I have to mention that the Omega Drive can be run at either 9 or 18 volts, or anywhere in between. So far, you've been hearing it run at 9 volts, and it is nice and compressed and gainy. Now, here's the Omega Drive running at 18 volts with the same settings. You hear a difference? Now at 18 volts, I find that it has slightly less gain, but is a lot more open sounding. So I might have to bump up the gain a little bit and maybe middle and less treble. At 18 volts, I also find that it responds to your volume knob tweaks a little bit better. If you're enjoying this video, please give it a thumbs up like, hit that subscribe button, and ring that bell. Now here we have the Omega Prime, which for all intents and purposes is the bigger brother of the Omega Drive. The Omega Prime shares the same basic tone and EQ controls as the Omega Drive, but with some added features. To demo the Prime, I'll be using my Sully Guitars Elita from the Conspiracy series, just so that you can hear the Rabatech Omega tone with a different guitar setup. I'm still plugged into that clean Super Reverb amp model. Now, one of the main differences between the Omega Drive and the Omega Prime is the addition of this crunch and lead switch on the Prime. Now here's how the crunch sounds. Lead. The other added feature that the Prime offers is the independent post-drive clean boost. Being post-drive, you can use the clean boost to lift the volume of your drive sound for your solos. And since it is independent, you can engage it on its own to add a little oomph to your clean sound. And it has enough boost on tap to kick even my Super Reverb amp model's input in the teeth. As I mentioned earlier, the rest of the controls on the Omega Prime works exactly the same way as on the Omega Drive. So I'm going to dial in my preferred setting on the Prime and then play around with the crunch and lead and the boost just so that you can hear how that works. One thing I forgot to do with the Omega Drive is to show you guys how the Omega tone works with split coils or single coils. So I'm going to do that right now. And like with the Omega Drive, you can also power the Prime with 18 volts. Now, which Omega should you get? Well, that depends on how far along you are in your pedal board setup. Now, if you have a pretty substantial pedal board already and you have pedals dedicated for boosts and crunch and stuff, then you can't go wrong with the Omega Drive. Now, if you're just starting out and you're looking for the best bang for your buck, or if you are looking to downsize and build a smaller pedal board and you want the maximum amount of tones from a small footprint, then the Omega Prime is for you. The Prime is basically two pedals in one, since you can use the drive and the boost separately or together. I believe there's a mod you can request from Rabatech where they can wire the crunch and lead switch to another jack. That way you can switch between crunch and lead using an external latching foot switch, essentially turning the Prime into a 3-channel pedal. Okay, there you have it. That is the Omega Drive and the Omega Prime. If you want to get your own, slide Rabatech a DM either through their Facebook page or their Instagram account. And again, if you're in the US or Canada, I have a limited supply available of these pedals, available from my website, perfectodecastro.com. So you better act fast. Now, which Omega would you get and why? Let me know in the comment section. Now, if you dug this video, please give it a thumbs up like, feel free to share it with your friends, and do subscribe if you haven't yet. Ring that bell. Now go grab your guitar and play something. You all know the drill. Practice makes perfecto. Cheers, guys.